Tassie Breakfast on SEN.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk all things politics now, and joining me on the line is independent Elwick MLC, Bec Thomas. Welcome back to the show, Bec.
Thanks for having me, Brent. Good morning.
What's happening in your world? It's sort of a bit of a holding pattern for you at the moment, I suppose, with the lower house election on. What's it look like for you during the last sort of 4 to 5 weeks?
Yeah, look, it is a bit of a disruption and a distraction and a bit disappointing to be in this position. I've been a bit down in the dumps about it, although grateful that I'm not having to campaign for re-election. Fixed terms are a great thing. Maybe we should have them in the lower house as well. But I've just been focusing on helping people in the community and spending time in my electorate office and out and about in the community, which is a part of my job that I love.
Seen a few polls recently come out. What's your gut feel of what happens this weekend?
Oh, look, I think we'll probably end up in a similar position that we were in. So let's just hope that the people who are elected can remember what they are there for, and that is for the people, to serve the people. And hopefully they can, get along and have mature and respectful debate and conversation focusing on, the issues that matter to the people who elected them.
Our listeners are obviously very interested in the stadium vote, etc. We're almost ready to rock and roll with that. You were set to play a big part in that. Once the new parliament's formed, how long do you expect it to take for that to be back in the conversation on both floors of parliament?
Oh, look, I think it will be pretty soon. Both Liberal and Labor are behind it. Well, could we see a Liberal-Labor coalition, Brent, and an independent Green, opposition? Who knows? But I think it'll be pretty soon. It'll be back on the agenda. The AFL timelines in the deal are already passed, so there'll need to be some sort of renegotiation at some point, and I think that'll be on the agenda for whoever forms government pretty soon.
Just had a text actually from David of Launceston on the Harcourt's open line. He says, "Is this the biggest week in the short history of the Tasmania Devils Football Club? What effect will the political landscape have on the future of the club?" Do you have a thought on that, Bec?
Well, look, I just think there's been so much work done already, and Tasmanians are really passionate about wanting a team. I think there'll have to be some renegotiation done, and I can't see a Tasmania where there's not a Devils. Tasmanians really want this team, and it'll be incumbent on whoever's in government to work with the AFL and to listen to the people of Tasmania and do what is necessary to make it happen.
As I said earlier, you're set to play a key role once that vote happens in the upper house, and we had the hearings last week as part of the Project of State Significance process. Did you follow those closely?
Look, I was following along bits and pieces. It's all really helpful information, and I think, it's having that information that is critical, and that's what I've said all along to the decision-making around this and to getting a good outcome. And some of the information presented is new information, some of it's information that's already been available. It's really important that Tasmanians are prepared to listen and seek to understand rather than listening to respond. And I heard you talking earlier about the state of commentary on social media, and wouldn't it be nice if we can just get to a point where we can have mature and respectful debate on these sorts of issues with the aim of getting the best outcome, that we are able to listen to each other and seek to understand different views, because it's not just so black and white as yes or no, and I think that's sort of where my mind's been at with this whole stadium debate, has been really trying to seek to understand, could there be compromises made? Could there be things modified a little to find a balance in this decision?
Did those hearings help you at all in which way you will potentially vote later on?
Oh, look, I still don't know. Well, we don't know what's going to be actually brought to the table yet. I think there's still a way to go in terms of the stadium and how it is presented to the Parliament for decision. Will the POS process be allowed to play out now? We just don't know. So, again, I can't say how I'm going to land on something when I haven't got exactly what I'm voting on before me.
Did you learn anything, though, that you mightn't have known otherwise just by having a listen to those hearings?
No, look, I think what's critical for me is what the government actually presents and, the briefings that are provided. I still haven't got a clear understanding of the operating model for the stadium. And I think that's incumbent on Stadiums Tasmania to brief members of Parliament on what that operating model looks like, because one of the things that I've repeatedly said is it's not just about the capital cost of constructing the stadium, it's what it's likely to run at a loss. So what's that loss going to be? What's that cost to taxpayers expected to be year on year? And how does the government propose to fund that? Is really critical information for me, and I still don't have a good understanding of that.
What if someone made a podcast about a crime you helped to solve? Like outsmarting hackers, taking down international cybercrime networks, or catching human traffickers, or taking hundreds of kilos of drugs off the streets. A career at the Australian Federal Police opens the door to legendary work. Which story will they tell about you? The AFP. Everyday people, legendary work. Apply now.
Bec Thomas is my guest on SEN Tassie Breakfast this morning. Let's talk some basketball, Bec. I think you said last week that the government's use of funding for basketball, you said that engaged in blatant pork barrelling. Is that something you stand by this morning?
Oh, yeah, look, I was really disappointed to see the Liberal government talking about redirection of $18.8 million in funding to build 4 more indoor courts at the Northern Suburbs Recreation Hub in Mowbray up north. That was funding that they'd allocated to Elfin Sports Centre. So it sort of sounded like, new money, but it's not. It's a redirection of funds. But that will take the total capacity of that facility at Mowbray to 11 courts. We know there's a shortage of courts across the state for basketball. Basketball participation is booming. We've got a shortage of 31 courts statewide, but that includes 16 in the south and only 9 in the north. This is going to take the north to having 11 new courts, so they'll have an oversupply effectively of 2, while we in the south are 16 short, just in Greater Hobart. And we've got a project here ready to go with 4 courts planned to be built at Newtown Bay, but we just don't have the funding for it. So, there's been a significant inequity in the allocation of funding for grassroots sporting facilities across the state in recent years. The government's delivered around $99 million in funding for projects across the north and northwest, and just 41 million in the south. So that inequity is really shocking, and I don't like doing the north versus south thing, but where it is just so obviously unfair, I think it deserves to be called out. And that it's in the context of 3 elections that this inequity has happened. So that would suggest that the inequity is related to trying to win votes, and that's the funding's going to projects where the government wants to win votes rather than where there is a evidence-based need. And I think we really need to get to a place, and I hope whoever forms government next develops a sport and recreation infrastructure strategy, so that decisions on community grassroots infrastructure, and even high performance infrastructure for that matter, are made based on evidence and planning rather than where they want to win votes.
So where to from here for the project out there at Carnelian Bay? What's next, and how can you get this over the line from here?
Oh, look, I'll continue to work with whoever forms government. I've had discussions with both Dean Winter and Jeremy Rockcliffe over recent weeks, trying to get them on board with this project and trying to get some sort of commitment to delivering it. To Dean's credit, he did sit down and meet with the guys from Hobart Phoenix and hear them out, and totally understands the crisis situation that basketball is in the south, in that when Swisher closes in May next year, there's going to be kids on the street with nowhere to play because we just don't have enough courts, and our school facilities aren't up to standard. You've got kids, our best kids, under 14, under 16 development squad kids training at Elizabeth College with courts that are affected by rain when the roof leaks, when it rains. They get in there at 6 o'clock in the morning and have to mop up the floor and have to then pull the old rings out from the wall, and they're on those old pulley systems, and the hoops aren't even. Like our school facilities aren't up to scratch, and that's what we've got our best kids training in. We just need some dedicated basketball facilities in the south. The Hobart Chargers have been in the Seabull League for 30 years, Brent, and they don't have a home. They play out of Kingston, and they play out of the netball centre in Newtown and even at Sorrel. They don't have a home in Hobart. And that $41 million that I talked about earlier that's been invested in community facilities in the south, just $1.5 million has been invested in the city of Hobart itself, in Hobart's capital city. So we're looking at Hobart becoming a place where you can watch sport but not play it. And, we talk about building this dream for the kids to play basketball for the Jack Jumpers or AFL for the Devils, but you got to have facilities to play in to start, don't you? And that's what we're desperately lacking. And the government's throwing twice as much into high performance and elite sporting infrastructure, $273.5 million. It's invested in planning to invest in high performance infrastructure compared to just $150 in community facilities in recent times. And that inequity is not okay. And, that's something I've also said in relation to the stadium is another high performance infrastructure is my support for government investing in that is contingent on it also adequately investing in grassroots facilities. And at the moment, the numbers don't demonstrate that is occurring.
Hey, Bec, we're out of time, unfortunately, but really appreciate you jumping on this morning here on SEN Tassie Breakfast. Enjoy Election Day if you can, and we'll talk to you soon on the show.
Thanks, Brent.
Bec Thomas joining me